Hi everyone, it's Christina Bretz and I am an occupational therapist with Learning Without Tears. I am here today to talk with you about the Learning Without Tears handwriting curriculum, as well as to talk about the importance of multisensory in our handwriting intervention sessions and the just developmental progression as we go through this. So, as I said, I'm Christina Bretz. I'm an occupational therapist that graduated from Eastern Kentucky University, and I have worked in home health and telehealth. I'm now currently pursuing my OTD through EKU and working as a program specialist and national presenter for Learning Without Tears. Okay, so let's talk about how Handwriting Without Tears got started. Handwriting Without Tears was started by an occupational therapist by the name of Jan Olson. And Jan had a son, John, in 1975 who was struggling with handwriting. So Jan took the skill of handwriting and broke it down. And we call that task analysis, as many of you know. So she looked at the task analysis and was able to create a program that is developmentally appropriate and has some multisensory components to the curriculum. So this was John's handwriting in first grade, and the teacher said it was the worst in the class. And so she suggested that Jan get John tested, but the evaluations didn't reveal any underlying cause for his difficulty with handwriting. And the teacher was really unsure what to do because she wasn't trained in handwriting. She was using what was on the shelf. And so that's when Jan started looking at that and said, you know what, I can create something that is more developmentally appropriate for children. So Jan started to work with John and 3 other students. So when she looked at that task analysis of printing, she started off with easy capitals. Then after she finished the capitals, then she moved into lowercase. And then after she taught lowercase letters, then she would teach words and then build on those words to teach sentences. So she worked with 4 students for 15 minutes a day. And the success of those 4 students is really what launched Handwriting Without Tears. So it's pretty cool that an occupational therapist was able to develop this handwriting curriculum that is used by millions of children now throughout the world. This is John's handwriting just a few weeks after Jan worked with him. So people really started talking when they found out about that Jan was working with John and 3 other kids. And so they started sending their handwriting kits to Jan. And so Jan started a tutoring business out of her home, in her basement, at her kitchen table. And that's really how she developed Handwriting Without Tears. She kept what was working, she threw out what wasn't working, and that's how we have the Handwriting Without Tears curriculum. So now we have a printing curriculum, a pre-K curriculum, a cursive curriculum, as well as a keyboarding curriculum. So now that you know how Handwriting Without Tears got started and was developed, let me tell you about how we begin with Handwriting Without Tears and what materials we use. So in Readiness and Writing, that is the pre-K curriculum that we use for our young 3s, our young 4-year-old children. And you can see we have the teacher's guide. We have My First School Book, which is the student activity book. We have small little crayons. We call those flip crayons. We're going to use those for the small hands, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. We've got our wood pieces. And then at the bottom there are all the letter play activities that we can use. So we're really building these letters. We're stamping these letters. We're rolling these letters. We're tracing these letters. We're copying these letters. Those kind of things are happening throughout this pre-K curriculum. So the pre-K curriculum is really getting children ready for kindergarten. It is providing those foundational skills to get them ready for kindergarten. And that's having those hands-on, developmentally appropriate ways. We're using music. We're going to use movement and multisensory manipulatives to teach core readiness skills with children. And because there's a lot that happens before we're putting that crayon in a child's hand. So As children progress, then they move from the pre-K into the formal handwriting curriculum. So this goes all the way up to 5th grade. And as you can see, each grade level, the color is different for each of the student workbooks. There are no grade levels on these student workbooks, and that's if we have a child that we're working with, say that's in 2nd grade but may need a 1st grade workbook, they're not going to see that they're working in that 1st grade workbook. They just see the name of the workbook. So the kindergarten through 2nd grade, the workbooks are in landscape style, and then in 3rd grade through 5th grade, the workbooks are in portrait style that you see there. So now let's talk about readiness and how it's used to prepare children for success in other learning areas. So when we think about readiness, we're really teaching developmentally, and that's the core of Learning Without Tears throughout everything, whether it's keyboarding, whether it's pre-K, whether it's printing or cursive. Teaching developmentally is our core philosophy of how we teach. So when we think about teaching developmentally, we naturally do things developmentally with babies, right? Think about it with a baby. We feed a baby before we ever would give them a spoon. We roll a ball to a baby before we would ever throw them a ball. But then why do we expect that students write their name that first day of school when they don't even recognize letters yet, or they don't even know how to write those letters yet? But we expect them to write their name on a piece of paper. Is that right? No, that's not teaching developmentally. So it's kind of like putting a 10-speed bike putting a child on a 10-speed bike before you have them mastering a tricycle. It's just not developmentally appropriate. So we know that children learn in stages when they are ready. So teaching developmentally and having children develop that love of learning is really key with this curriculum. So we need to learn the importance of developing fine motor skills in our young children. And we see such a decrease in fine motor skills with children in today's world. And I think, the use of technology and bringing that in, we've actually seen a decrease in fine motor skill activities. So it's providing those fine motor skill activities so that we can develop those skills. We want children to establish handedness. We want to teach crayon grip. Grip does not naturally happen. It has to be taught. So we want to teach it at this young age with our children. And these all occur before children are even coloring, before they're writing their letters. And we want to identify the stages of writing readiness. So we're going to talk about that too, identifying the stages of writing readiness. And we're going to discover how important social skills are for all learning, especially right now in this pandemic. Social skills are really, really important. So we want to think about how we can help children with social skills and how that really is impacting all of their learning through this. So one of the ways we can do that is we can teach social skills in this curriculum, and it's through a song. And when I play these songs or when I talk about activities, I want you to think about why. Why is this happening? So with this song, what are we teaching with this song? Why would we do this song? Because what are children learning as they participate in this song? And this song is called the Hello Song. So I'm going to play this song for you now, and I want you guys to think about what children are learning.
1, 2, you know what to do.
Oops, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me play that again.
1, 2, you know what to do. Little kids can wave bye-bye, but only big kids know how to stand perfectly still and say hello. Give them your right hand, look them in the eye, put a smile on your face, then you say hi. Give them your right hand, look them in the eye, put a smile on your face, then you say hi. It's nice to meet you, how do you do? They'll be so happy to be meeting you. Greetings are a way to say, I hope you have a wonderful day. Give 'em your right hand, look 'em in the eye, put a smile on your face, and then you say hi. Give 'em your right hand, look 'em in the eye, put a smile on your face, and then you say hi.
Okay, so when we think about this song, we have to change the song up a little bit in today's time with the pandemic. We don't necessarily have to give them our right hand, but we can wave to show that sign of greeting and making eye contact. Most pre-K children are not having to wear masks in school, and as we have done a lot of focus groups lately, a lot of the pre-K are in school. And either they're hybrid or they're in school. So we can have this song to where we just have them look them in the eye and say hi and maybe wave with their right hand. So what is this activity or this song teaching children? Well, when you think about this song, one of the things that it's teaching is social skills, of course. It's fun. It's teaching right and left discrimination because we're shaking with our right hand. But right now, we've got a pause on the shaking with our right hand so we can wave with our right hand. And then directionality. We're not teaching children to be right-handed by saying you're going to use your right hand. We're teaching that right and left discrimination. So as we progress through today, this webinar, just think about how social skills will be a part of everything children are learning. And that's really important. Some social skills are going to develop naturally, while others are going to need to be modeled or taught. And we're going to see that with the kids that we work with, that a lot of times those social skills need to be modeled from us so that they can imitate what we are demonstrating to them. And we can provide that safer place. And I think that's something, as I've been doing a lot of focus groups with pre-K teachers, is that something that they have been talking about, is providing a safe place for children to be able to express their ideas and their opinions. And that's whether they're in school or whether they're remote learning too. And then we also have to have those routines, so teaching routines. And so if you're working with a child doing an intervention session, that's really important too, is having a routine to your session and being able to establish those routines and transitions with children. We also want to show them how to help others, how to pass and how to share. Sharing is so important at this young age. How to take things out and put them away. That's important at any age, and I'm seeing that with my teenage children. That's important, and maybe I lacked on that one when they were younger. But we want to have those important life skills. These are all important life skills and important social skills that we need to teach. Okay, so let's look at some of the ways that we help with teaching readiness. Okay, so many of you may have seen these before. These are our wood pieces. And this is how we're going to build the capital letters. So with the wood pieces, we have big lines, we have little lines, we have big curves, and we have little curves. And in a box of wood pieces, so if you have been in a school or you're observing an OT in the school or in a pediatric setting, a box of wood pieces has 8 big lines and 6 of the rest. Okay, 6 little lines, 6 little curves, 6 big curves. And so one box is appropriate for 3 to 4 children. So you could have a little small group that you're using this with. For OTs, mostly we're probably using this in a one-on-one session with a child, but this is a great activity to be able to do with children to help them build, and there's lots of readiness that we can do with this. So with the wood pieces, we begin with music to understand these, because we need children to understand the differences between these, that what looks like a big line is a big line, and that this is a little line that we see right here. So that those are things that we need to be able to have children understand, and we know that children learn naturally and so positively with music that we start out with teaching them music. But it's really important with the wood pieces that we use that consistent terminology. big line, big curve, little curve. That's really going to be consistent throughout this whole program and help children to learn the formation of the letters. So as I said, with wood pieces, we first start out with music, and that's really, helping them build these capital letters through music, but it's just promoting engagement with the music and that active play. Then polish, sort, and trade. That's where we can have, children, you can have a small group and have those pieces out there and have all the pieces on the floor and say, okay, everybody find a big line. What are we working on there? What is that activity called? Where we have all the pieces on the floor and they have to find that big line or that little curve. Working on figure ground, working on visual discrimination, right? So then we also have these tactile activities. So with tactile activities, oh, and let me just add this about the polish, sort, and trade. So with polish, sorting, and trading, I usually I have a whole drawer full of socks that just have one sock. I can't find the other one. I don't know where it is. One day I'll find a whole thing of socks. But I take that one sock and I give it to each child. So each child has a sock, and they're going to put that sock on their dominant hand. And then they're going to take that wood piece and they're going to polish that wood piece. Well, think about that. They're stabilizing the wood piece with one hand, they're non-dominant, and they're polishing with their dominant hand. So that is a what? What kind of activity is that? If you said bilateral coordination, you are correct. So that's a bilateral coordination activity. And so we're using both sides of the body. And think of it, if they're bringing it to the middle, they're bringing it to midline. And we're also, when we think about handwriting is a bilateral coordination activity. So they're getting both, this is a great precursor or writing activity for them. Now the tactile activities, that's where you can take a pillowcase, put some wood pieces in the pillowcase, maybe you put big lines, and that's it. Maybe all you have is big lines, and you say, pull out a big line. And then they work on, oh, I've pulled out a big line. Now you put in little lines, and now they've got to distinguish that. So now they're not using their vision, they're just tactily putting their hand in there. So what is that called? When we put our hand in there and we're trying to feel around for that piece. If you said stereognosis, you are correct. So that's an activity that we can do. For positions and body parts, that's another activity. So with the positions and body parts, we can take a big line and we can put it above our head or below our chin, under our elbow. Think about those position words. For a child with autism, it can be very difficult, those abstract words of those position words, but when you give them an object, then that is going to help them to understand those position words. When I say above my head, below my chin, okay? Vertical and horizontal. Those directionality words we can say to children. We can say, watch, this is vertical. This is horizontal. So providing those kind of visuals for them to understand. Curves and circles by putting two big curves together. You get two big curves out of here. Putting two big curves together and making those circles and talking about apart, together, things like that. And then diagonal, crossing our midline and making our wood piece go diagonal. Now, if kids can say Pokemon, they can say vertical, horizontal, diagonal. So teach them those directionality words. It's very helpful. We'll revisit this section later of wood pieces and hands-on letter play in just a minute. But let me show you a song that we teach with our wood pieces. Okay, so a song we teach with the wood pieces is the Wood Piece Pokey. And I want you to think about what children are learning with this song as they participate with it. Now, I'm going to participate with this song as well. And I am going to play this song. So let me get it up here for you guys to see it too. But you're going to see that with this song, we are really think about what we're teaching, think about what children are learning as we go through this, and how much fun they'll have with this song too. Here we go.
Hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. You make the big line walk. You make the big line talk. Hello, hello. You make the big line walk. And then you move it up and down. You do the hokey pokey, put the big line down. That's what it's all about. You put the little line in front. You put the little line in back. You put the little line in front. And then you give a little tap. You do the hokey pokey, put the little line down. That's what it's all about. You put the big curve up. You put the big curve down. You put the big curve up. And you turn yourself around. You do the hokey pokey, put the big curve down. That's what it's all about. You make the little curve wait. You make the little curve skate. You make the little curve wait. And then you skate it all around. You do the hokey pokey, put the little curve down. That's what it's all about.
Okay, so if you had wood pieces, I hope you participated with me. With the wood piece pokey, what are children learning? Think about that. What are children learning with the wood piece pokey? Well, if you said they're learning the wood pieces, you're correct. They're going to learn, okay, pick up that big line. We're starting with big line first. Then we're moving on to little line. Then we're going to big curve and little curve. They have to learn to stop and wait, right? With the skating of the little curve. Wait and then skate. They're learning front and back. So they're learning position words with that little line. Put it in front and put it in back. And then up and down, those kind of things. So with these songs, you're going to see they're going to have fun with the songs, but there's so much that they're learning within these songs too. So that's what makes it great to be able to use as well. There's another song called the Tap, 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 and that's using the big lines, 2 big lines, and having them tap along with those big lines. This is a great song I had a pre-K teacher that told me she used to use this in her classroom with her 3-year-olds because it was the only time they would all of them would listen right away because they love this song. So think about ways that these songs are going to help with listening skills. They're going to help with following directions because we can demonstrate and children can imitate what we're doing. Okay, so that's another song that's great for helping children, especially getting the wiggles out. Sometimes we just need to get those wiggles out. And for me, songs are a great way to start a handwriting intervention. So I use the songs at the beginning, and this is a great start and stop activity song. So I've used this one a lot with children before going into my gross motor, fine motor activities. Now, let's talk about developmental stages, because this is really important of our developmental stages. The way in which a child holds a crayon or a pencil depends on their developmental stage. So the writing tool they use and the instruction they receive is all really important when we look at these developmental stages. So how do children develop these skills? Well, let's begin with a 2-year-old. So a 2-year-old probably really shouldn't have a tool in their hand, right? this is what we call the restaurant stage, when we give children a crayon at the restaurant. Now they won't do it during pandemic time, but before before our pandemic, we saw this happening, where children were given a crayon, and what's the first thing they would do? Well, they may put it in their mouth, right? They may eat it. They may bang it. They may scribble or throw it, drop it, those kind of things. Now, the crayon, as you look at this 2-year-old, the crayon is in the palm of their hand. And children are likely going to scribble here. And we can show a 2-year-old a vertical and a horizontal line. Now we fast forward to a 3-year-old. Now we can start to think about teaching grip. 50% of 3-year-olds can demonstrate a mature grip. And that is research from Colleen Schneck at EKU. So she did this research years ago that looked at that 50% of 3-year-olds have that fine motor ability to demonstrate a mature grip. Now notice in here with this 3-year-old, the crayon is still in the palm of the hand, but this is when children become interested in coloring and they start to use that helper hand. So they start to use that non-dominant hand in stabilizing the paper. And that's really important too. And so a lot of times when I have children that are a little bit older that may not be holding that paper down correctly, I use these little googly eyes. And I have the child put these on their non-dominant hand. And that way I have them name these little googly eyes. So maybe Sam wants to name his googly eyes Sherry. Well, I'm not going to talk to I'm not going to talk to Sam about him not holding the paper down. I'm going to talk to Sherry and I'll say, Sherry, I want you to watch what Sam is doing. So then that hand goes down on the paper and those eyes are looking at the paper. Okay, so that's just a little tip that I do for if children are not stabilizing the paper. Now, at a 3-year-old level, the child can copy lines down and across, and we want to show this child a circle or a cross. Now let's look at a 4-year-old. A 4-year-old, this is when the mature grasp emerges, but the child's still using arm writing. And what I mean by this is you might see this whole thing happening like this. Okay, so we want to show these children how to hold the tool. And at this age, a child can copy lines down, across. They can copy a circle and across. So we're going to show this child a square and a triangle. And they can start to trace things. Now, I think at this age, at 4 years old, this is when I love to use stencils. And I like those big cookie cutter stencils. I don't like the little intricate stencils because that can be too frustrating for a child. But the bigger stencils, like I use the Wilton big cookie cutters. And that way the child is stabilizing with their non-dominant hand, holding that stencil down, and they're tracing that stencil on the paper. And that's really encouraging the helping hand to hold down that stencil. So a great activity to use with children. And then we're going to teach grip at 4. We're going to continue to teach that grip, that crayon grip, because we want to have success with crayon grip. And this is really when it needs to be taught, is at this age, so that we have success at 5. Just look at a 5-year-old. This is when we start to see that mature grasp begin. And now we're starting to see handwriting. We're not seeing this arm writing. We're really starting to see handwriting happening here. The helper hand is helping as they're holding down the paper. This child at 5 can copy lines, circle, cross, square, triangle. We can show a child a diamond. We're going to show them letters and numbers at age 5. So lots happening. But before we think about teaching children to hold a crayon, to hold a pencil correctly, we have to make sure we provide plenty of opportunities to develop hand strength and coordination. And so especially in today's world, we need to boost those hand skills. We need to boost that fine motor development to get children hands ready to hold a crayon. So you'll see here in these pictures, stringing beads. is a great activity for them to do. The little boy that's holding his hands up like this, that's some finger play activities. And we have some different finger play music that we do prior to putting a crayon in a child's hand. Blocks are great. Legos are awesome to use. Now this one here that you see with the little girl, this is one that Jan Olson thought of. So like I told you earlier, she tutored children from her home. And she would do a lot of it in her kitchen, at the kitchen table. Because she had another younger daughter besides John. She has 3 children. John is the middle child, and Jan had a daughter that was younger. And so she would have to have Julie in a high chair and be tutoring kids over at the kitchen table. So this little girl has an oven rack. And basically what Jan would do, she took her oven rack out of her oven and placed a piece of paper, like a butcher piece of paper, underneath that, and had children trace those lines on the paper. So they were having to stabilize with one hand and making those lines across with the other. So she said she didn't cook very much, and that was why her oven was so clean. So she was able to do that. Okay, so I think when you think about different activities that you can use with children to show an intervention is always a great idea, such as the stringing beads, squirt bottles. Squirt bottles are awesome, and kids love squirt bottles because you're using this side of the hand, right, to squeeze that trigger. And I've used squirt bottles throughout the year. Even when it's cold outside, I put different food coloring to make it a different color water, and we'll go outside in the snow and squirt to do things with that for fine motor wise. Using tongs and scissors. Scissor skills is really important too. A lot of children have difficulty with scissor skills, so providing those opportunities, giving them resistive toys, different fasteners, buttons and zippers, those are all good. And easel activities are awesome to help with fine motor development, of giving them, if you don't have an easel, just tape the work onto the wall. Providing that vertical surface is going to help to bring that wrist into a neutral position, which will really be beneficial too. Okay, so now let's talk about drawing, because drawing is really important. For children. Drawing is really important for children, and in this section we're going to talk about how children develop their drawing skills. So like I said before, according to research, and this was back, Colleen Schneck developed this in 1990, that 50% of 3-year-olds had the fine motor ability to hold a small crayon correctly. Now, if handedness is undecided, choose the more skilled hand to be the writing hand. And how I do this is I just create a T-chart, and I'll show you what that looks like up here. I just create a T-chart that looks like this, and I'll put left and right. And then on this, I'll just have parents be able, hope you guys could see that okay. I'll have the parents put things in midline for the child. Okay, and they're, I guess you probably couldn't see that too well, could you? But they'll put things in midline for the child, and they're going to just tally which hand they pick that up with. Did they pick it up with their right hand or their left hand? And so they may put a fork or a spoon or a brush or a toothbrush or some of the items that I suggest. And then at school, have the teacher do it too, and ask the teacher to put their crayons or scissors or whatever puzzle piece in midline and see which hand they're picking up with. And do that for about 1 to 2 weeks. Come together and check and see which one we have more tally marks at. If it's left, then choose that left hand to be the more skilled hand. If it's right, choose the right hand to be the more skilled hand for that writing hand. But looking at which hand they're picking it up with majority of the time. Then we want to demonstrate correct grip. And that is so important. Demonstrate, demonstrate, demonstrate. I can't say it enough. Demonstration is key for children. and use little crayons. So let's look at this. Let's look at the grip and talk about the appropriate grasps. So the two appropriate grasps are the tripod and the quadrupod. Now, the tripod is where, let me get my pencil here. Okay, the tripod is where the thumb is bent, the pointer finger is pointing to the tip of the pencil, and your pencil is resting on your middle finger. That's tripod. How many of you have a tripod grasp? I actually have a quadrupod grasp, and that's where you're going to bring your middle finger up. So now your pointer and your middle finger are pointing towards the tip of the pencil. Your thumb is bent, and the pencil is resting on the ring finger. That's quadrupod. Okay, so that's providing more stability with that quadrupod grasp. But there's a belief that grip just naturally develops. Oh, it'll happen. Kids will be able to hold it correctly. That's not true. It has to be taught, and it really needs to be taught at this young age when children are young learners, ages 3 and 4. The ability to use the 3 fingertips naturally develops, and research shows us that with that pencil grip. But children learn to use those 3 fingers through play, through picking up Cheerios, with their finger foods. But the ability to properly position the crayons doesn't naturally develop. It has to be taught. Just like if we're teaching a child to cut meat with a fork and with a knife, it has to be taught. And that's how grip is too. So one of the things that we want to do when we're teaching grip is we first want to introduce our fingers to our children. That this is our thumb. Everybody do this with me. This is our thumb. Say hello, thumb. This is pointer finger. Hello, pointer. This is tall man, right? And so then we can teach children that our thumb is bent, pointer points to the tip, and tall man uses his side to have the pencil rest on tall man's side. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to use a song to help facilitate this. So this song is called the Crayon Song. Now with the Crayon Song, I have children use the little flip crayons that you see here. Now little tools for the little hands is really important because as you saw with my big pencil here, one of the things when children have a bigger tool for their small hands, they need to hold on to it. So they may grasp it like this with an immature grasp just to stabilize and hold it. But when we give them a small tool, they're more likely to pinch that small tool, which is going to help to facilitate a more mature grasp. So with this song of Pick Up a Crayon, this is a great song to help facilitate that crayon grip. So let me show you, I'm going to play this song, and I want you guys to listen to this song and also to do this with me. So if you don't have a crayon, just use your pen or pencil as we go through this song together. So here we go.
Pick up a crayon, pick up a crayon, this is easy to do. Pick up a crayon, pick up a crayon, I just tell my fingers what to do. My thumb is bent, pointer points to the tip, tall man uses his side. I tuck the last 2 fingers in and take them for a ride. Now I'm holding it just right, but not too tight. Every finger knows what to do. And now I have a big surprise for you. Let's drop them and do it again.
So why would we drop our crayon and do it again? Why would we drop it and do it again? Well, we want children to be able to drop it, pick it up, place their fingers correctly on it, drop it, pick it up. It's that consistency, it's that repetition to be able to hold it correctly. So think of doing that, and you don't have to play this song. You could just sing it to a child and say, okay, ready? Pick up a crayon, pick up a crayon. This is easy to do. And then have them, my thumb is bent. Now, If a child isn't holding it correctly, you're going to physically manipulate their fingers on the tool correctly and then have them drop it, pick it up again, drop it, pick it up again. I usually have them do it 5 times before we even work in the student workbook of, okay, drop your crayon, pick it up, let me see you hold it correctly. Now put it up in the air, that's right, make some circles in the air, great, drop it again, pick it up, hurry, pick it up, let me see you holding it correctly. You know, you can make it into a game so that children are having fun while they're learning how to hold this correctly. I usually send home a sheet that we have on our website on crayon grip so that parents know the correct grip, because a lot of parents don't have that grip. And demonstration is so key with grip. I'll tell you a little story. I was working with a child who was right-handed, excuse me, and he had a hook to his wrist. He had a hook. So a lot of times with a left-handed child, we see that hooked wrist because they're wanting to see what's on the paper, and so they hook their wrist. But this was a right-handed child that had a hooked wrist. And so I worked with him to eliminate that hook as we were working on some printing difficulties. And it was the first time I'd seen a right-handed child with a hooked wrist. And so a couple weeks into seeing this child, the dad came to pick him up. And he went to write down the next appointment. And as he wrote down the time and date of the next appointment, he had a hooked wrist and he was left-handed. So that was where I realized that power of demonstration is key and crucial when working on grip. Okay, so just make sure to demonstrate correct grip and start it with a young age so that children are understanding the appropriate grasp when working. Now, let's go ahead and move on, and I want to show you an activity for drawing skills, because this guy, Map Man, is so loved with children. I mean, children love Map Man, and he really comes to life as children are building him. He is a product that we have with this curriculum that has taken his own line of products. So we have Map Man books, we have Where in the World is Map Man, where people have Map Man t-shirts and they'll post where Map Man is located in the world. But Map Man helps with body parts and function. We integrate music with Map Man, singing, drawing. You're going to see that Map Man, okay, again, thinking of why are we doing this? Well, Map Man teaches body awareness. Map Man activity teaches sequencing, taking turns, following directions. There's a lot going on with this activity. So I want to show you a video right now of Map Man in action. And with Map Man, you are going to see what happens first with this activity is we give children a blank piece of paper and we say, go ahead and draw a person on this piece of paper. Then, after they've drawn their person, then they come to the circle and they're going to build Map Man. And we're going to teach them the sequencing of Map Man. Then they're going to go back to their seats and they're going to draw Map Man again. And so I want to show you a video of Map Man being built in the classroom. And with this video, you're going to see there's a little boy that comes to the center, to the circle a little bit later. And I'll talk about him in just a moment. But this video was never intended to be shown in a workshop. But there's so much valuable information and it's such a powerful video that we wanted to keep it in this workshop, in this webinar. So let me show you this video of Map Man in the classroom.
Map Man has one head, one head, one head. Map Man has one head, so that he can think. Eyes, two eyes, two eyes. Map Man has 2 eyes, so that he can see. Map Man has one nose, one nose, one
Very
nose.
nice
Map
job.
Man has one nose, so that he can smell.
that I'm going to introduce you to. Okay? And his name is Matman.
I'm 5.
You're 5 too, okay?
I'm 5.
Matman, do you want me to show you what Matman looks like? Do you want to come have a seat by me? Okay. Okay, this is Matman. Matman has one head. There's Matman's head. And Matman has one body. And Matman has 2 eyes. And Matman has 1 nose. And Matman has 1 mouth. And he has 2 legs. And 2 feet. And Matman has lots of hair. You know what we're going to do? I'm going to give each of you a piece of Matman, and then we're going to build him together. And you can have some hair, and you can have that hair. You have the nose.
A pink nose, I love pink.
You get an arm, get the body. You get a leg and another foot. Are you ready? Hold on to this. Are you ready? Now, when I say your part, you need to come up and put it on the floor, okay? And I'm going to sing you a song. Matman has 1 head, Matman has 1 head, Matman has 1 head, so that he can, what does he do with his head? He thinks. Does he think with his head?
Yes.
He has all the head?
And the
You
brain.
think with your head? You think with your brain, that's right. Matman has 2 eyes, Matman has 2 eyes, Matman has 2 eyes. So that he can see. Matman has 1 nose. Matman has 1 nose. Matman has 1 nose. So that he can
Smell.
breathe and smell. That's right. We breathe and smell with our nose. Matman has 1 mouth. Matman has 1 mouth. Matman has 1 mouth. So that he can
Talk.
talk.
And taste.
What in taste? What else do we do with our mouth?
Eat.
We eat and we do one more thing.
Talk.
What am I doing? You smile with your mouth. Can everyone smile? You smile. Matman has 1 body. Matman has 1 body. Matman has 1 body to hold what is inside. What's inside of us? Food. And we have a heart. You can hear your heartbeat. Can you hear your heartbeat? And you have lungs, help us breathe.
And bones.
And you have bones and a stomach. So that's what our body holds, what we have inside. Matman has a lot of hair. Matman has a lot of hair. Matman has a lot of hair. To keep his head warm. To keep his head warm? Is that what our hair does?
Yeah.
Yes. We all have different kinds of hair. Now, Matman has curly hair, but he can also have straight hair, because a lot of you have straight hair. And he has, Matman can have brown hair, and blonde hair, and red hair, and black hair. We all have different colored hair, right? There is one more thing that we can give Matman. And I'm going to tell him what it is, okay? Matman has a belly button. Matman has a belly button. Matman has a belly button. How many of you have a belly button? You all have a belly button. I want you to go back to your tables, and I want you to sit quietly and wait in my direction, okay? Okay, we are going to draw Matman together. I need you to point to the top of your paper. Do you remember I told you where the top is? Okay. And I want you to watch what I'm going to do. Do you remember? Matman has a head. Can everyone make a head with me?
Yeah.
Oh, Matman has a head. Did everyone make a head?
Yeah.
Oh, do you remember Matman? Matman has 2 eyes. Can you make 2 eyes on Matman? 2 eyes. And Matman, now listen.
Nose.
Matman has a nose. And Matman has 1
Mouth.
mouth. And Matman has 2 ears. Let me see your ears. Look like this. Your ears like this.
And some teeth.
And Matman has 1 body. Do you wait? Watch Miss Emily. Do our body like this. Remember Matman had a body?
Batman has 1 head, 1 head, 1 head. Batman has 1 head. So
What did we?
Batman has 2 eyes, 2 eyes, 2 eyes. Batman has 2 eyes, so that he can see. Batman has 1 nose, 1 nose, 1 nose. Batman has 1 nose, so that he can smell. Batman has 1 mouth, 1 mouth, 1 mouth. Batman has 1 mouth, so that he can eat. Batman has 2 ears, 2 ears, 2 ears. Batman has 2 ears, so that he can hear.
Listen. Listen.
Batman has 1 body, 1 body, 1 body. Batman has 1 body. Hold what is inside.
His heart, his tummy, his lungs.
Okay, so that's Matman. You could see how you didn't see how they began with drawing a picture of a person, but then you saw them come to the circle and build Matman. So with this activity, you saw body awareness, you saw sequencing, you saw taking turns, social skills, and also within this, you'll see creativity. So I want to show you some before and after. So the first drawing, before they ever sit down to get in that circle to participate with the Matman activity, this is one little boy that really struggled. This is the boy that came over to the circle late. Just giving him a blank piece of paper, he was very intimidated by this because he was unsure of how to draw that person. So making that step back and saying, I'm going to demonstrate to you. Here's a circle. Now you make the circle for the head. Now let's make the eyes. Now you make the eyes. You know, having that first level of learning of demonstration imitation was so important for him. And you can see his frustration led him to just scribble out the drawing. Now this is his after there was the demonstration. Just look at that. This made the process of drawing a person achievable because the teacher was imitating each part before he was expected to draw that part. And that's really over time, what you're going to see with Matman is they're going to start to remember those skills and they're going to be able to independently draw those pictures of other people in their life. Just take a look at how Matman can evolve. Here's Matman, and this is children will start to learn how to associate shapes with those figures. So you can see in this picture, the little girl has the girls and the ladies have triangles. And the father is a rectangle. Now, I'm not sure why he looks like a cheese grater. I don't understand that one, but he does, doesn't he? But yeah, so this is one way of how we're going to progress with our drawing skills. And here's another way where we're taking those shapes and we're building and we're making these shapes into different illustrations that you see here. So it's really boosting that creativity and imagination, and that's what's going to happen in the Get Set for School pre-K curriculum. So you can see how teaching grip is really important for helping children with their drawing skills. So at the beginning of the school year, when you're working with children, we need to teach grip. We need to provide children with opportunities to expand their drawing skills in a developmentally appropriate way. And so you can also see how children are using those shapes and they become different shapes and take on those different illustrations there too. Okay, so now let's talk about alphabet knowledge, because this is something that is going to come into play in our intervention sessions that we're working with children. So this is alphabet knowledge is everything about letters that isn't writing. So before we have them writing, we need to have children recognizing letters, right? So one way we can do that is through singing, through speaking, through matching, through sorting, through naming these letters. And these activities are not dependent on the child's ability to hold or manage a writing tool. It's really active, it's hands-on. There's a social component with alphabet knowledge, but we're really focusing on naming capital letters, naming lowercase letters. So when we think about this, we know children sing the ABCs before they can name those letters. They'll sing A, B, C, D, but when you say, oh, what letter is this? They may not be able to do that. So we want to, then they're going to learn to put those letter names and symbols together. And so providing those opportunities is going to be really helpful for children and progressing from that. So one of the ways we can do that is through the alphabet song. And this page is located in the My First School book, in the activity book, to help them with understanding those letter recognition. And the song is very slow. And the reason it's so slow on here is because we want children to point to those letters in the activity book. So that LMNOP is 5 letters instead of 1 letter, LMNOP. So that's really preventing that confusion of those letters there. Oh, and you'll also notice there's dogs on this page because there is a song that we have. It's called The Dog in the School. There's dogs in the school, and so they bark to the ABCs. And so kids can bark. And so it's just a fun way to connect the page to a song. But think about this. Other things that children are learning with this activity, they're having to track left to right. They're having to track top to bottom. Those are all things that children need to learn. They need to learn top to bottom, left to right directionality. We can check for handedness, for pointing. When they're pointing, are they using their pointer finger? Are they using their dominant hand to point to those letters? Okay, so then we can go into lowercase letters after this. Now, children are going to become familiar with capital letters, and we have a lot of activities to help with those capital letters. And we do this through building, through rolling, through stamping, with chalks, with finger play, with the crayon in the My First School book that you see here. So we have a lot of opportunities to help them with alphabet knowledge. And really, this is a fundamental step for reading success too, is alphabet knowledge. So activities are going to focus on using songs. Activities are going to focus on using hands-on activities to promote letter recognition. Another activity that can help promote letter recognition is through the ABC Touch and Flip cards. Okay, so let's talk about the ABC Touch and Flip cards. So the ABC Touch and Flip cards have 27 picture cards. There's an animal on one side that's a puzzle, and on the other side there's capital letters. So you'll see, like with this, there's a capital letter D on this side with an animal puzzle. They're going to put these puzzles together to create the puzzle pieces. This is tactile, so it feels kind of like a sandpaper letter that we have here, but I've done some color rubbing or crayon rubbing on this one. And the 27 cards here, the first card has a smiley face, and then it starts with the capital letters. And then there's also another set of letters, another set of cards that have 26 letter cards with capitals on one side, lowercase on the other. And but you'll notice on these cards we have the little smiley face up at the top, just to signify top to bottom. We're going to go top to bottom, left to right on here with children. So children are going to be learning about capital and lowercase recognition. They're going to be learning about letter formation and letter memory. And then we can get into lowercase letter recognition as we go through this as well, that they're learning, about, and this is in their My First School book, that they're going to be learning about these letters in here too, that some letters just don't look like they're harder to recognize than others. So when we have alphabet knowledge and we build letters, this is where we're going to have that writing success. So we've always done this. In our handwriting curriculum, we may not have called it alphabet knowledge, but that's really what it is, and it's a great way to help with reading skills too. So now let's talk about colors and coloring, and this is something we want to think about a lot in pre-K with our young learners, because we want children to understand how to color, and we need them to be able to name the colors, name these crayons. We need them to, when they can name the crayons, that's going to help with developing their coloring skills. But we need to make sure that they can successfully hold a crayon. And so with this, that's really what we're working on, is teaching them crayon grip so that they are able to do this throughout the year and throughout their life. So we take a developmental approach to helping children develop crayon skills, and that's through this 3-step approach of aim and scribble, aim and color, and aim and trace. And this is found in their student workbook of My First School Book. So the first couple of pages is just aiming and scribbling. They're taking their crayon, we're helping them to hold their crayon correctly, and then they're just scribbling on the page. There's no right or wrong way to do that. Really, our focus on those aim and scribble pages is just to make sure they're holding their crayon correctly. Dropping it, picking it up again, dropping it, picking it up again, and then scribble. And then we have pictures or pages, that they're going to aim and color, and they're just coloring the pages, those pictures on the pages, and then aim and trace, where they're actually going to trace on those pages. So it's this design of this 3-step approach is really getting them, it's a developmental progression of being able to help them with their coloring skills. So they're moving the crayon from scribbling to actually tracing those letters. So when we think about coloring, there's so many benefits to coloring. Coloring is such a common thing to do that we often overlook the importance of coloring in pre-writing development. It's really an important activity for children to do. And it just pains me sometimes when I see the iPad has these coloring activities on them where kids can use their finger to color in the color by number picture. That is just, it's painful to see, because we need children to put a tool in their hand and to be able to promote correct grip. So there's so many things that we can look at when children are coloring. We can look at their attention. Are they able to attend to the task and complete the task? We can look at their grip. Are they able to have hold that grip the correct way? Are they able to control? Are they able, their posture, their strength, their endurance? Are they using their helper hand to hold that piece of paper and color? So there's lots of things that we can look at through coloring. Okay, so then if they can color with appropriate grip and posture, then they're ready for handwriting instruction. So before we begin that handwriting instruction, we need to look at pre-writing and making sure that we're preparing children for writing success. And one of those ways is through the hands-on letter play activities. And this is really what's the core at this program, are these multisensory activities that we have here. So we want children to physically build the letters before they write them. And this really helps to develop a connection of writing with this. It's teaching them how to position their letter correctly. It encourages them those good habits. And when you look at this slide and you see all of those activities there, do you know what they all have in common? When you look at those activities, from capital letter cards to mat for wood pieces to roll-a-dough to Stampin' See screen to slate, what is something that they all have in common? If you said the smiley face, you're right. They all have that smiley face, indicating that visual cue of we're going to start at the top. We're going top to bottom, left to right. So the letter cards here in this slide that you see here, letter cards are the easiest. The slate is actually the hardest. So this is in developmental progression. The letter cards are the easiest because they're just placing the wood pieces on top of the template. And then the slate is going to be the hardest because they're actually taking a tool and they're having to write. So let's look at these progression here. Let's first take a look at the letter cards, the capital letter cards. Now you'll notice the capital letter cards, this is really teaching letter orientation of, facing the letters correctly in the correct direction, and letter formation of forming those letters in the correct sequence of those letters. So we're taking the wood pieces and we're putting those on top of the template. So this can be a my turn, your turn. Watch me, it's my turn. I'm going to put my big line on top of the big line on the capital letter card. Now it's your turn, you do it. So if you have two cards, you can do that easily. Maybe you do it and then you give it to the child and have them do it. But we want to do a my turn, your turn, where we're demonstrating and the child is imitating. And that's really where that remediation is going to occur, where we are demonstrating to a child so that they can imitate us. And that's the first level of learning. Then the next steps are with the mat for wood pieces, and you'll see that blue mat. Now we don't have a template. Now they just have this blue mat, and they're having, and I'll show you, let me get my blue mat out here. I have a blue mat here, and they are just putting that wood piece right on this blue mat, so there's no template here. Now when I say to a child, watch me, it's my turn, big line underneath the smiley face, well now I've prevented the reversal of the capital D, because they can't put the big curve over here, they have to put it over here on the mat, so that helps with the preventing reversals. The next is the roll-a-dough. And I know many of you who have worked with children or have been around children have used Play-Doh with them. Well, roll-a-dough is developing their fine motor skills through rolling and pinching of the dough. So they're rolling those out, they're placing those on the cards that's in the tray right over top, so giving them the template of these capital letters. So notice how I keep talking about capital letters, capital letters. We're going to start with capital letters first, then we're going to move to lowercase letters. Okay, so we're teaching all of this through capital letters. So we have fine motor skills that they're learning here through that pinching and rolling. They're learning letter recognition by, okay, find the R capital letter. So they're learning that recognition as well as size and positioning. So with the roll-a-dough, there's 13 double-sided laminated cards, and then there's 5 double-sided number cards. So you can work with letters and numbers in here. And with the tray, I've used things from pudding to shaving cream in there, not just the roll-a-dough. So as OTs, we have to think creatively on ways to make it fun and engaging for kids. So I've also used salt, sand, to have them, trace over the letters within the tray there too. So another activity, another letter play activity is the Stampin' See screen. And probably some of you have seen like Magnadoodles. This is what the Stampin' See screen kind of looks like. It has these magnetic stamps that you see there next to it that they can stamp right on the screen. But the stylus that you see there at the bottom is cut in a 45-degree angle. So children, when they pick it up, they can't, and let me show you what that looks like. I've got that here too. They can't hold it with an immature grasp. Okay, they've got to put their finger at the top here to press down when they go down and make that letter. Because if they try to hold it like this, like a gross grasp, they're not going to be able to do that on the screen. So this is really helping this chalk tool is helping to promote a more mature grasp. It also is where? It's also in midline. So this is going to help with looking at their hand dominance, their handedness. So being able to use this and start to observe those things there too. Okay, so that's helpful as well. But when we think about the skills that are being developed, letter recognition, organization, directionality, sequencing, all of this is helping with the Stamp and See screen. And I would say this is when I use this is one of the most favorite that the kids like to use, because I think they like the element to be able to erase it and using the tool, those kind of things. And the last letter play activity, which is probably the most powerful activity, I use this with almost every child that I work with, is the wet, dry, try. And so with this activity, we believe in hands-on activities, as you've seen. And this multisensory activity is one that we use quite a lot. So we can use this with the slate chalkboard, but basically what we need to do here, and the most important step in this activity, and I've seen in so many classrooms that I've been in as an OT, I've seen this being done incorrectly. The most important step in wet, dry, try is to put the letter on the chalkboard first. The child needs to see the correct model of that letter on the chalkboard. And then once the letter is on the chalkboard, then you give the child a small wet sponge and they trace over it. Then you give the child a small paper towel, a little wad of paper towel, and they trace over it. And then you give them a small chalk bit and they trace over it. Why are we giving them small pieces? A small sponge, a small chalk bit, a small paper towel? We want small tools for the small hands. That way they're pinching. It's providing those opportunities for them to promote a more mature grasp. So this way they are having the repetition of the sequence of that letter at least 3 times. You can have them take their finger and put their finger in water, have them trace over it so they're getting it a couple more times as you go through, and then take the paper towel and dry it, and then have them try it. So thinking of ways that you can have them repeat this formation in fun, hands-on ways is a great multisensory approach to learning the letters. But the slate chalkboard and the wet, dry, try activity, I think, is one of the most powerful activities to help with instruction as well as remediation. So it's definitely something that I use a lot in my handwriting intervention sessions. Okay, so let's talk about writing. Now, writing. When we think about writing without instruction, children go to kindergarten just drawing their letters. So children who write well have that educational advantage over children who don't. We first have children, we want them to build their letters, like I just showed you with all those hands-on letter play activities. And then we teach them to trace with crayons. And then this is the year to teach writing habits that really are going to go with them throughout life, from top to bottom, left to right, and that's going to set them up for success in kindergarten. So we teach children easy letters first because we're going through this developmental progression, so we teach capitals first. Well, why do we teach capitals first? The reason we teach capitals first is they all start at the top. They're all the same height. They occupy that same vertical position. And they're easy to recognize. Out in the community, you see the capital H for hospital, or you see the big exit sign, EXIT, all in capitals. So it's in the M for McDonald's in capitals. So they're big, they're bold, they're familiar. Lowercase letters are more difficult. Think of this. So all capitals start at the top. We're not going to have any capitals start at the bottom, but there's 4 different starting positions for lowercase letters. Look at the A. Look at the B, look at the E, and look at the F. Okay, so So we see those different starting positions, so that can be more difficult for children. And they're not all the same size. We have some letters that are small, and we show them that this is a small lowercase letter. Some letters that are tall, and some letters that go below the line that are descending. Okay, and they might be more difficult. So out of lowercase letters, 12 are full size, like the B, the D, the F. So those are the same size as capital letters. And then you have 14, like the A, the C, the E, that are half the size. Those are our small lowercase letters. And then we have our descending lowercase letters, the G, J, Y, P, Q. Okay? So one huge difference in teaching lowercase letters is it requires you to introduce children to lined paper, because we have some letters that go below the line, some that go above the line, some that fit in between the lines. So with capitals, we teach capitals with gray blocks, but we teach lowercase letters with lines. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. So when we're teaching capitals, we teach them in a developmental order. We teach them with developing that strong foundation for printing, that they learn to start these letters at the top. We want them to use that correct stroke sequence to form the letters. We want them to orient these letters and numbers correctly without any reversals. So that's why we're using these gray blocks to teach it, to provide that visual boundary of the size of the letters, as well as help to prevent reversals with these letters too. So the first grouping of letters is the frog jump capitals. And these letters all start at the top left corner with a big line down, and then they frog jump back up to the top. And then when the first line is on the left, the next part of the letter is on the right. So it's really helping to prevent reversals. It's teaching good stroke habits with those frog jump letters. Your next grouping of letters is the starting corner capitals, and these all start in the top in the starting corner, and then they complete the letter. So reviewing these letters ensures that children start at the top left and use that left to right formation habit. And the good habits will form when they use these for their capitals, like the U, V, W, X, Y, Z, then it's going to carry over to the U, V, W, X, V, Z, Y, Z when they're going to lowercase letters too. Then we have our center starters, and these all begin in the center of that gray block. So we have our C, O, Q, and G. Those all start with a magic C stroke. And the good habits children learn here will make it easier to make those lowercase letters. So we want to reinforce capital formation for all children, even the ones that know lowercase letters. We're starting with capital letters first, and then we'll go into lowercase letters. So the next grouping is our lowercase letters. And for lowercase letters, we have a developmentally based lowercase formation where we're starting with the same as capitals. We move to our magic C letters, which are A, D, and G. These all make that C stroke, and then they form the letter. Magically, it turns into a D, or magically, it turns into a G. Then we have our transition group, our diver letters, and then the final group are infrequently used letters. So with lowercase letters, these are grouped by similar starts and strokes, and they're grouped by frequency of use. So that's what we're looking at with our lowercase teaching order. Now, let's go to our tips for when we're tracing, when we're looking at this. So when we're going through tracing, and this is great, I have this in here at this point because it's good for pre-K children, but I use this a lot for kids of any age, that when I'm working on remediation, to not provide dot-to-dot remediation or interventions, because dot-to-dot, just look how confusing that is. When you're looking at that A, you can see on the left-hand side, that is a capital A. But for dot-to-dot, a child is just trying to go from number 1 to number 2 to number 3 to number 4. And that's what they're thinking of. They're thinking of the numbers. Whereas with this gray stroke that you see here, they see that letter. that's what they're forming over. They're tracing over that. So I usually use a highlighter for extra practice and then have the children trace over that to make the letters. And also I'll put a dot where I want them to start to indicate clearly to them where they should start that letter. And then provide that to the parents. Let them know, this is how we're going to help with extra practice when a child's struggling with a particular letter. So when you see this in their student workbooks, you're going to see we have those gray strokes. And when a child traces right over that, then they see the letter. In all of these workbooks, everything is in black and white because we want children to color. Coloring is such an important skill. And look, this child extended that drawing. They put a tree, they put grass, they put put clouds and a sun. So they've really tapping into their child's, into their imagination too, of this as well. Now, really important skill in pre-K is learning their name. And a lot of times children struggle with name writing. Just look at this. This did not help Sophia, did it? No, look at that. This is not good because children can trace wrong and they can copy wrong at whatever age. So we know that dot to dot is not helpful. Repeated practice is not helpful. I know a lot of you have heard the term practice makes perfect. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that because you can practice bad habits, right? If you practice bad habits, that's not going to make it perfect. But practice makes permanent. And so if we practice good habits, that's going to be some permanent practice there. That's going to take into effect. And we're going to see a better way of teaching, of writing our name. So developmentally, it's easier for children to begin with capital letters in name writing. So we can start with name writing with these two ways. First is capitals, and this is just providing a sheet of paper, a little, we call this a capital letter strip, and I'm going to demonstrate to Sophia. Watch me, Sophia, it's my turn, and then I demonstrate the S. And then Sophia writes the S below. So it's demonstration, imitation, demonstration, imitation. Remember that. That is so important with remediation as well as instruction in handwriting and in any learning. We need to demonstrate first, the child will imitate. Okay, so we start with our capitals as they're easier for children and it's going to set them up for success. And so we put this, I put that name strip above their name strip. And if I'm sitting next to them, I want them to be able to see how I do this. Usually how I do this is I sit across from them. So I am actually making the letter upside down for me, but the right way for them, and doing it letter by letter. Now, for most children, you're going to start this at the beginning of the school year, so you're going to make exceptions to teach letters of their name out of order. But children are motivated by their letters of their name. They want to be able to write their name. So we want them to write their names early in the year, and we're going to teach this out of order. Now, once they can write their names in capitals, then we transition to writing their names in title case, which is capital and then all lowercase letters. So this is just having them learn these good habits. This is wet, dry, try activity with the blackboard with double lines. So I can write their name on that blackboard with double lines, and then they're going to take that sponge, trace over it with a wet sponge, trace over it with a dry paper towel, trace over it with, or write it with the piece of chalk. So that's how we're going to teach name writing. So we also, as we go through this, that is how it looks for our young learners. Then we go into the older grades where they're going to learn words and sentences, and then we get into cursive. And cursive is all about the connections. It's all about connecting writing together. Okay, so connecting that printed letters into cursive writing. So let me talk about resources. Well, one of the things I want to share with you today is that with resources, we have a lot of resources on our website right now, and because of distance learning, as OTs, we're seeing something that looks a little bit different than what we're normally used to for those who don't do telehealth. So I want to show you a video of myself providing telehealth to a child so that you can see I'm going to be using a lot of the Learning Without Tears materials, but also I use other things. But this is an OT session with this child, and after you watch it, I'll come back and talk about it, and we'll wrap up, and then I'll be on live to answer any questions. So let's watch this video of a way to provide telehealth services to children.
Okay, I think we're ready. Hey,
Hey,
Clayton.
Clayton.
How are
How
you?
are you?
Are you
Are
good?
you good?
Okay. We're
We're gonna start off today with first of all, I need to make sure that you have all of your materials. Okay?
So I want you to hold them up for me so that I can see your materials as we go through this. So I'm going to put this up here so that you can see my screen. And so the first thing I need to see is your clay. So you have your clay, I've got mine too, okay? Then you have your crayons. Good. And your pencil. Good. Do you have paper?
paper?
Do you have paper? Dad, does he have paper there? Yeah, just blank paper's fine.
And then,
Pencil? Do
you have your pencil?
And your
And
book?
your book.
You have your
You have your
handwriting book?
Perfect. Okay.
So
So the first thing that we're gonna do today, are you ready?
We
We gotta do some movement, but I'm gonna need help too, because I'm not gonna be able to see everything, okay?
So
So I'm gonna need help from
your
your dad to be able to see this.
So
So here we go, we're gonna play a little Simon Says. So stand up. Stand up, are you ready? Simon Says, do what you see on the screen.
Is he
Is he
doing it
correctly,
correctly, Dad?
Good, good.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
good, here we go.
Simon says do this.
Got it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Simon says do this
one.
Good
Good job.
What about this
one?
Oh, hold on. Did Simon say?
No. Okay.
All
All right, go ahead and have a seat.
Do you
Do you see the I Spy
on the screen? Okay.
Okay.
I
I want you to find, and you know how to use the little tools
up
up here to show me how to
circle
circle
something.
something?
You know how to
You know
do that? So I want you to find this. I want you to find
the
graduation cap. When you find it, then you're going to circle it. Very good.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
now
now
what
what I want you to do, you have your clay
in
in front of you.
I
I want you to take your clay and roll it like this and form that into a capital G. So you're going to have a big curve, and then you're going to have a little line up and a little line across. Okay, a little line up and a little line across.
And
if Dad, if you can just move his camera down so I can see what he's doing, that would be great.
And let me show you the capital G.
Big curve. Little line up. Little line cross.
Does
Does yours look like mine?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Would you
Would you
agree,
agree,
Dad?
Dad?
Yeah, very close.
Good.
Good job, Clayton. So now, do you see in your book, you have some capital G's here. So I want you to write, watch me first. I'm going to write a cap, I'm going to start at the dot, and I'm going to make a big curve, and then a little line up, and a little line across. Okay, now it's your turn. So Dad, if you can push the camera down so I can watch what he's doing on his paper. Good. I'll make this a little bit bigger so I can see.
This will help me. Okay, go ahead and do it again.
Magic C. Up like a helicopter. Bump. Back down. Turn.
Okay, you ready? So now we're going to go back to our piece of paper here. Watch me first. I'm going to start with the lowercase g, and I want to start at the dot. So I'm starting right here, and I'm going to make a magic C, up like a helicopter bump, back down and turn. Okay? Now it's your turn. Go ahead. Good. Okay,
Clayton.
So now bring your camera up so I can see you. Hey there. So now for homework, what I want you to do is you're going to take your crayons, and I want you to rainbow write. This is with the E, but I want you to do the G, okay? Okay, so that gave you a way to see how we can do the telehealth in with a handwriting session in teletherapy. And that was using the Handwriting Without Tears handwriting interactive teaching tool, which is located on our website. We do have that as a download. I believe it's still available for 90 days free. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can look at that. But having those digital tools, but also providing experiences that are hands-on in those sessions are very important too. So we want that multi-sensory approach and making sure that we're going in a developmental sequence. So we always want to start with that developmental sequence and incorporating multi-sensory activities. Okay. So I would just suggest to you guys to, make sure to, when you're just looking at different things, look online. And we have lots of online resources, lots of research on our website to understanding handwriting and understanding that developmental progression. So I'm going to now end the webinar, and I will be online to answer any questions that you guys have regarding handwriting and this fine motor development and multisensory approach to teaching. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.